So I want to start with that particular news on the floods, where 3 more people died in separate incidents in Kitengela and Kirinyaga as heavy rains continue to cause havoc in the country. In Kitengela, 2 bodies were retrieved from a river and a ditch. And in Kirinyaga, a woman died and her 2 children are nursing injuries after their house collapsed. This comes as the crack on the Kamulu-Joska Bridge along Kangundo Road widened. Meanwhile, motorists were forced to change their routes following flood along the Thika Superhighway around Kahawa Sukari, Kahawa Barracks and Kenyatta University. Timothy Kipnoso is on the floods watch.
The death toll from flood effects continued to rise Wednesday after the bodies of 2 middle-aged men who drowned in Kitengela were retrieved from Nunkopir Seasonal River and a ditch near Kitengela GK Prison.
Ombi langu na himizo langu kwa wakaaji wote katika miji ya Kitengela na Kajiado nzima. Ni vyema tuchukue tahadhari. Mito sio nzuri kwa sasa.
The bodies were retrieved as tragedy also struck in Kirinyaga Central after a 4-story house collapsed at Karia village following heavy rains. The mother of 2 children who was reported to have been sleeping downstairs died, while her 2 children who were in a separate room suffered injuries.
So that we don't know whether it is floods or poor building. We'll be told by that technical team, the complex of engineers.
Hii nyumba haikuwa ikijengwa vizuri, juu ile chuma ilikuwa inajenga, ilikuwa chuma konda sana.
This comes as residents living along Kangundo Road after Kamulu-Joska Bridge are staring at impending disaster after cracks reported on the bridge widened following heavy downpour that submerged the bridge.
Bridge yetu tukiangalia imeanza kukatika. Hata juzi watu wa NTSA walikuwa huku wakaiangalia, lakini hatujaona response yoyote.
Tuna pia hisia kwamba upande mwingine imesomba makazi ya watu.
Ningesi wazazi muangalie watoto, haya maji mvua inaendelea kunyesha.
Meanwhile, transport operations along Thika Road were paralyzed after the road was flooded at Kahawa Sukari drift between Kahawa Barracks and Kenyatta University. The road was temporarily shut and motorists diverted before operations resumed.
Maji ilikuwa inabeba magari haikuwa inapita, na watu wa Kenya lazima waangalie barabara wainue juu, ndio kukakati kutakuwa na maji ikiinuka juu waweze kufunga maji iweze kupita.
Ikaonekana hii barabara ya kuenda Kenyatta University hapa maeneo ni pabaya zaidi. Hata kuna gari kule ilikuwa imegwama pale na imeingiliwa na maji.
And Canaan Estate residents are bearing the brand of Tuesday night heavy downpour. Movement within the estate has been hampered greatly as the area was fully submerged by flood waters.
Haitakani sasa vile ati masavea wanakuja leo wakiangalia wanaenda, kesho wengine wanakuja wakiangalia wanaenda. Hakuna jambo tunaambiwa kesho kutaanza kazi ama kutakuwa nini inaendelea.
Like sasa vile mnaona ya kwamba hii maji kirudi hivi ni kumaanisha kuna blockage kwa hizo drainage system. So imekuwa ikiathiri wakazi wa Canaan ya kwamba hawawezi pitia hii maeneo.
In Narok County, 40 guests and several staff members have been rescued in Masai Mara Game Reserve after River Talek broke its bank. 9 camps have been affected by the floods.
Tuliweza kuokoa wageni ambao walikuwa wako kwa hizi macamps karibu 40 na wote wako sawa, hatujapata vivo yoyote.
Hii maji inaendelea kuhatarisha maisha yao na hasa wakati wa usiku. Wewe ningetaka kuambia waangalifu na waondoke katika sehemu wako.
Tutatoa sasa watu kwa nguvu. Tukipata watu kule, tukipata kwa sababu tunachukulia sasa hatua. Kama hiyo ni sasa kama ni commit suicide.
They include Atipilikwani, Mara Leisure, Mara Bez, Olkinyei, Mara Big 5, Marriott, Sweet Acacia, Pride Inn, Mara and Kananga Camp.
Of course, we'll be keeping tabs on the flood situation across the country. Remember that the Kenya Meteorological Department has already warned that these rains are going to be with us until at least the end of the month, varying degrees, but still do take care of yourselves wherever you are and your families. Do not underestimate the power of moving water or raging waters. Do not underestimate that. So let's move on, where the Kenya Defence Forces has joined in the search of the missing persons following the Monday morning Maimahiu Dam tragedy that has so far left more than 50 people dead. These are survivors of the tragedy narrate the harrowing events leading to the deaths and destruction of property after the old Kijabe Dam burst its banks that fateful morning. This, even as it emerged that earlier warnings on the looming danger were communicated before the tragedy struck.
It's 3 days now since the devastating calamity hit residents of Maimahiu after the old Kijabe seasonal dam burst its banks, killing dozens downstream. At the Naivasha Sub-County Hospital, survivors of the tragedy are receiving treatment.
Wakuja majembe wakaning'oa. Kung'oa mguu ilikuwa imefujika. Ya kusoto. Na johero huku. Kuuma.
Nilisikia nikiwa nimegongwa miguu. Na hapo singeweza kujiokoa. Ila tu muti ilitoka na huko. Ikanigonga mbavu. Ndio sasa ikanikwamua hapa. Maji ikanisomba.
Lakini watoto wengine wameenda.
In the female ward, Mary Mudhoni is still coming to terms with the loss of 8 family members.
Aniambia hapana mama, juu kumekuwa usiku, acha tulale. Sasa ndio hiyo maji ilikuja imetubeba.
This even as most residents confirmed earlier warnings from local churches on the looming crisis. Kenya Defence Forces has joined in the search operations as the death toll hits 51.
Now, President William Ruto has directed Cabinet Secretary, that is Florence Bore, to spearhead the process of raising minimum wage by at least 6% to compensate workers for their valuable contribution to national building. The President's remarks during the 59th Labour Day celebrations at Uhuru Gardens in Nairobi was in response to a request by the Central Organization of Trade Union Secretary General, that is Francis Atwoli, who was advocating for a 22.5% pay hike for minimum wage earners to cushion them from tough economic times. Giverson Minor reports.
Workers from various sectors across the country will have to wait for a little longer for an increase of their minimum wage. This after President William Ruto instructed the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection to trigger off wage councils for various sectors, including agricultural, to kick off the negotiations with key players with an aim of achieving a 6% increase in minimum wage.
Na ndio mimi nataka sasa nimwambie waziri wetu wa Labour aite kamati ile inahusika na waketi chini, minimum wage tuongeze at least minimum by 6%, na mutaniambia vile hesabu hiyo itafanyika.
As at today, it is unfortunate that no minimum wage council has met to deliberate and advise on the minimum wage adjustments as required by law.
Anything that the president akikusalamia jambo, that is law. That is law.
While acknowledging the country's economic challenges, Central Organization of Trade Union Secretary General Francis Atwoli had asked the president to consider an increment of 22.5% of minimum wage.
Na tunaomba yeye atupatie 22.5% or whatever he has put in his pockets.
The head of state saying Kenya's economic trajectory was on the right track, with over 140,000 youths now working the affordable housing program, while 120,000 others had acquired digital jobs.
Kabla ya mwisho wa mwaka huu, mutaziona zile nyumba nilianzisha mwaka uliopita kwa sababu nyingi zimeanza kuwa tayari. If seeing is believing, you will begin to see.
Further, the president stated that various bilateral agreements on labor export with various countries including Germany, Austria and Saudi Arabia will see 250,000 Kenyans get jobs abroad every year. Labour and Social Protection Cabinet Secretary Florence Bore said 7 agreements were at an advanced stage of negotiations, while 14 are in drafting stage.
My ministry is also developing bills to enhance the legal framework for protection of labour, which include the Labour Migration Management Bill.
As workers celebrate the 59th Labour Day, President William Ruto has insisted that it is unreasonable for any group to make demands that may exceed the country's economic capacity.
Watu wafanyikazi wote.
Thank you, Giverson Maina. Now, conversations on the protracted doctor strike dominated this year's Labour Day celebrations, with President William Ruto citing the doctors' pay demand untenable. The president maintained the economy was in the red, calling on doctors to return to work, and politics would play out in the push for an increase in private security workers' salaries, as KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli used the platform to hit out at his critics who have called for his exit from the umbrella labor union. John Jacob Curia with the details of the evolving workers' union demands, coming at a time when junior secondary school intern teachers are also threatening to down their tools, demanding to be employed on permanent terms.
For over a month and a half now, approximately 4,000 doctors in Kenya's public health sector have kept off the hospitals, demanding implementation of the 2017 collective bargaining agreement that listed 19 issues to be resolved. Talks between government and doctors collapsed after doctors rejected government plea for a pay cut. The point of departure would once again feature during the Labour Day fit in Nairobi. President William Ruto, in his address during the fit, did not mince his words in revisiting the stalemate.
Na ndio nawauliza hata madaktari wetu, tumeweka kwenye meza yale serikali iko tayari kufanya. Kati ya mambo nafikiri 19, serikali imekubali mambo 17. Imebaki 2 kwa sababu haiwezekani kwa mambo ya fedha, na wauliza madaktari wetu warudi kazini. Mambo tutarekebisha, uchumi tutazalisha, na kila mtu atapata haki yake tukisonga mbele.
Labour CS Florence Bore and Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja would also wade into the matter, urging doctors to soften their stance on the matter for the sake of Wanjiku.
My ministry remains steadfast in engaging social partners, and I once more call upon the healthcare workers and employers to reconsider their position for a win-win outcome. We need normalcy to be restored in the health sector to bring to an end the suffering of our people.
Tunaomba madaktari wetu jameni, turudi kwa meza, tumalize mazungumzo yetu ili turudi kutibu watu wetu, sana sana sasa ambapo tuko na jangwa hili la mafuriko na la mvua. We need all our doctors. Nashukuru madaktari wa Nairobi walirudi, wengi wao, around 80% are back there. Wale ambao wako nje, tafadhali, hakuna jambo ambalo haliwezi tatuliwa.
You managed us on 6th of March, wakati ulitangaza serikali haina pesa, you rendered KOTU impotent, you rendered FK impotent, you rendered your Minister of Labor impotent, you rendered that committee that you had set out where my deputy was impotent, because as a worker number 1, when you take over a dispute, we cannot contradict you. We can't.
I want to appeal to the government and the doctors to give social dialogue a chance to resolve the ongoing strike by the doctors to alleviate the suffering of Kenyans. When all stakeholders come to the table with a willingness to listen, to learn, and to compromise when necessary, it paves the way for sustainable solutions that benefits everyone involved, and we get win-win solutions.
The podium would also provide fodder for KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli to take on his perceived critiques.
People who set us free from the labor movement, and we must remember them. We must have their history. They were not people who had been appointed by government on various positions and they want to pretend to be labor leaders. And Your Excellency, today's trade union movement has changed from agitation to scientific dialogue. That is why you don't hear us on newspapers. That is why you don't hear us fighting. We are busy with employers in boardrooms.
Governor Sakaja would also chip in on the wars facing Atuoli.
Ile kazi ambayo tunafanya Nairobi, kuna watu ambao wanataka tupoteze focus. Hatutapoteza focus. We know what needs to be done. We know the progress we are making. So usisikie uchungu. Unajua hata mimi nasikia uchungu nikiona wewe ukipigwa. Na nimeona umeanza kuchokozwa. Lakini usife moyo pia wewe papa. Wale wametumwa kunichokoza pia ndio wametumwa wale wanakuchokoza. Na itaisha. Hiyo ni siasa ya kawaida, itaisha. Stand strong, stand firm. You're the leader of the trade union movement, not just in Kenya, but in Africa. You must be respected.
Staying with the Labor Day celebrations, hundreds of Kenyans braced the morning cold and light showers to attend the 59th Labor Day celebrations held at the Uhuru Gardens in Nairobi capital, in the capital that is in Nairobi. Different unions representing workers in different sectors graced the celebrations, donned in their attire with their tools of trade in tow. Our reporter Sarafina Robi paints for us the picture of the day's celebrations.
The 59 Labor Day celebrations at the Uhuru Gardens. Unions in tow with their tools of trade marched by in grace and splendor. From the security sector, energy sector, hospitality sector, health sector, education sector, the county government as well as the national government were all represented. Kenyans from all walks of life braced the cold and rain to attend the momentous occasion.
Nafurahia sana kwa kuwepo hapa kwa siku ya leo, siku ya wafanyikazi. Hata kama mimi sio mwajiriwa na sina kazi, nafurahia sana kwa wenye wanafanya kazi. Wetu wa Jamhuri ya Kenya akija, kama atakuja, aongelee kuhusu wafanyikazi na aongelee kuhusu madaktari, angalau atufikishie 26%.
The work calls to enhance working conditions of workers in line with this theme of Kenyan workers for economic growth, political stability and job creation.
Wakati huu pia kuna mgomo ambao unaendelea. Tunajua kwamba ni hali tata sana nchini ikiunganishwa kwamba pia kuna hali ya mvua mingi ambaye ina uwezo wa kuibua magonjwa ile ya kuambukizana kama kolera ambapo itaweka watu katika hali ya hatari.
Ni pia tutambue wafanyakazi kwa jumla, yale mashirika ya kiserikali ambayo si ya kiserikali, yale ambayo yako private, tujue ni nani yafanya nini wapi. We appreciate na we embrace kwamba haijalishi wewe wafanya kazi in what sense, wewe ni kiungo kile muhimu. Ni kama mwili, kila kiungo kina kazi yake. Usidharau kucha ukaiona haina maana, hiyo ndio hiyo kucha ndio utajua we ina hadhi yake.
Light moments did not go unnoticed from the leaders in attendance.
Kuitwa Sakayo siki. Bora tujenge Kenya hii, watu wapate manyumba, tuwe na affordable, tuwe na universal health coverage, watoto vijana wetu wapate ajira. Zakayo ni jina, tuendelee mbele. No problem.
Anything hata president akikusalamia jambo, that is law. That is law. Usifikirie utaenda kutafuta law ingine pale ingine. So wacha tupeleke president pole pole na tumwangalie, tumchunge na yeye atatuchunga. Na tunaomba yeye atupatie 22.5% or whatever he has put in his pockets.
Since the year 1885, when the celebrations were first marked after the 1886 riots to reduce working hours to 8 hours, the Labor Day celebrations have been marked annually across the world, with Kenya marking 59 years since they were first celebrated in 1964. This comes as most unions make a clarion call on the need for an increase on the minimum wage bill.
Thank you, Sarafina Robi. Now, Labor Day celebrations in most counties recorded a low turnout, with workers calling for an increase in wages. Here is how Labor Day was celebrated in various counties.
the taxes that were created recently, those taxes have really eaten into the salary of the employees, so they don't have the buying power. The purchasing power is completely eroded. So we would like the government to look into these issues and give the employees a general wage increase this time.
Government should cushion workers today, now that they have overtaxed the workers. There is housing levy, there is water levy, there is whatever levy. We need the government today to give a proper wage increase to the workers.
I really appeal that they look into domestic workers' issues, because this is a core pillar of care work that it is an agenda that is going around the world that care work should be recognized.
But sisi wenye tunajua ni na nitapiga simu.
Ati watu waanze kuandikwa kwa contract, hata hao wako kwa contract. Hiyo ni mambo yao. Hii mfanyikazi wa chai mchuna chai umpe contract ya siku 5 ama wiki, utakuwa unamlipa shilingi 2. Hakuna mahali anakijiandikisha kwa union. Tutasaidia hao watu namna gani?
Tunapata mchunaji majani, mfanyikazi, equal task, different pay. Hiyo inaitwa discrimination ni kizungu. 18,000 na 48. Sure, is that fair?
Now, wacha nikaribishe area chief.
Well, that story brings us to our first break of the bulletin. I'll be back with much more, including sports. Welcome back. We continue with the news. We are close to 3,000 people affected by floods in Kibra constituency, that is in Nairobi County, have benefited from a food donation courtesy of the First Lady Rachel Ruto's Mama Doing Good program in partnership with other well-wishers. During the donation, the First Lady assured the victims of government support with both food and non-food items during this period. The Ministry of Interior has put the number of those displaced across the country at 30,099 households.
With many families displaced by floods in the country having lost almost all their belongings and livelihood to the floods that continue to wreak havoc in several parts of the country, it was a little sigh of relief for the residents of Kibra constituency in Nairobi County when the First Lady Rachel Ruto visited them with food items.
Serikali imeweza kuweka juhudi zote kuhakikisha kwamba Wakenya ambao wameathirika kwa ajili ya hii mafuriko wanaweza kupata chakula, wanaweza kupata mavazi, wanaweza kupata makao.
In normal circumstances, our disaster management team would be dealing with this, but we don't have enough resources. We don't have enough resources to be able to support all the people who have been impacted, whether it's here in Mathare, in the other informal settlements, as we call them.
Through her Mama Doing Good program and in partnership with other players including Chandaria Foundation, KEPSA, Global Peace and the Ministry of Special Programs, the First Lady donated a variety of food items including rice, beans, fortified food for children, unga, green grams and millet.
But we are asking that each one of us become a keeper of the other. This is our message from Mama's office, that we take care of one another as children of one nation. If a neighbor is in need, kindly support them. Those of you who will be affected, if they run to those who are not, kindly let us host them if we can, especially our neighbors.
Special Programs Cabinet Secretary Penina Malonza asked those living near rivers and in riparian lands to heed to the government's advice to vacate with the 48-hour period given by the government almost lapsing.
But if Gong is raining, definitely we are going to have water. And I think that is the most dangerous one, because when it's not raining, you cannot take precaution. But when water flows from another place, it's even more dangerous. So we ask people to move.
Agriculture researchers, policymakers and businessmen will gather in Naivasha next year as stakeholders seek to incorporate technology in agricultural practices in Africa. Over 1,000 delegates consisting of global leaders will also come up with modalities to be implemented by African governments to aid the food security agenda. Now, being the third conference, it will also focus on policy and how to monetize agriculture and enjoin institutions of higher learning in the cause.
This event, dubbed IBMA IBMA, which is the International Conference on Business Models in Agriculture, was last held in Rwanda this year in March. And I had the opportunity to attend the event. I was very inspired because it brought about many peoples from all over the world, from Israel, from the United States, from South Africa, from Nigeria, and they were all talking about policy on how to monetize agriculture and how to make all the organizations in Africa, universities, work together so that we can be more productive as a continent in Africa.
This conference is very unique because we are driving a unique agenda. We all understand that Africa can win on the food sector. It is so complicated to win on other sectors because we understand there are some other countries that have high potential when it comes to energy, a high potential when it comes to aviation. But when it comes to the food sector, Africa, we believe that we can be the leading, we have a leverage to promote the food sector to the level we want it to be.
And as the bank, we look at how do we de-risk agriculture for us to make all the players within the value chain have access to facilities and financing within the banks. So for us, we are saying we are helping and supporting all players within the sector to leverage in technology for them to be able to scale up.
Mithika Linturi's political future as Agriculture Cabinet Secretary will be put to test today, with members of Parliament expected to debate on an impeachment motion against him. His survival will depend on whether or not at least 117 legislators give the nod for the formation of an 11-member I beg your pardon, select committee to probe his removal from office. The impeachment motion tabled by Bumula Member of Parliament, that is Jackson Nelson Wamboka, was signed by 110 legislators. Our reporter, Abdiaziz Hashim, examines the next steps as Linturi makes history as the first cabinet secretary in the current government to face an impeachment motion.
Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi's fate now lies in the hands of the legislators, who will on Thursday vote to either have him face an 11-member select committee or save him. His woes began with the fake fertilizer saga, in which he was accused of being at the center of the scam, facing allegations of gross misconduct and abuse of office. As MPs gather in the National Assembly on Thursday morning, they will be guided by Article 152, Section 6 and 7 of the Constitution. MPs will debate on the motion by Bumula Member of Parliament and vote on it. If 1/3 of the members equivalent of 117 legislators support the impeachment motion, it will trigger an 11-member committee to probe the claims within 10 days. Should the committee be formed, then it will open up a window for the CS or his representatives to attend the proceedings. The committee report will then be tabled in the House for adoption. If the allegations against him are found to have been substantiated, he will be accorded an opportunity to defend himself before voting. If the committee finds the allegations against him unsubstantiated, the matter will be put to rest. Pursuant to Article 152, Section 10 of the Constitution, a resolution requiring the President to dismiss a Cabinet Secretary must be supported by a majority of members of the National Assembly, which is 175 members. A resolution that achieves the required support must be promptly delivered to the President, and he is bound to dismiss the Cabinet Secretary. If impeached, Linturi can appeal in court. The House has until next week Tuesday to dispense with the motion. However, noting that the House is scheduled to proceed on a 1-month recess as from Friday 3rd May 2024, the Speaker directed that the matter be canvassed on the 2nd of May.
So I am seeing this bag here. So if this is what KEBS brought, or the certificates you have from KEBS, looking at it, I am telling you, this is not the fertilizer, it's not within the fertilizer subsidy program that I am running.
This comes as the net has been cast wider, leading to the arrest of 3 senior officials at the National Cereals and Produce Board (NCPB) over the same. The 3 are Managing Director Joseph Kimote, Corporate Secretary John Ngetich, and Marketing Boss John Matiri. They are expected to be charged alongside senior officials from private firms alleged to have been involved in the distribution of the fertilizer.
Residents of Baruti Ward, Nakuru County are protesting the alleged killing of an 18-year-old man. They allege that the Kenya Wildlife Services officers threw the man into Lake Nakuru on grounds of illegal fishing. 18-year-old Kelvin Erenge, whose body is yet to be retrieved, is said to have disappeared on Friday. Reports indicate that Erenge had allegedly been arrested by the officers, according to his family. Responding on phone, Lake Nakuru National Park Senior Warden Titus Mitao said he can't comment on the matter as it is under investigations.
Peleka deep sea na wakamwachilia bila life jacket, wakamtupa ndani.
Mimi nikaendaga mpaka hapo kwenye alikuwa. Kitu nilikuta tu ni samaki zake na kambenye alikuwa na ruadha nayo. Juu ni kitu nilijionea na macho yangu na ndio maana inaniuma. Juka ningekuwa sijaona singeumwa. Leo ni siku ya 4 ndio tunaambiwa ati mwili imepatikana huku ndani.
Kama ni mashtaka afunguliwe mashtaka, si enda kumuua kama mtu ambaye si mzazi, hana uchungu wa huyo mtoto. Juu huyo mtoto si wake. So ana ile uchungu wa huyo mtoto. Amezima taa huyo mtoto.
Let's take a look at counties where Migori County Assembly is set to have an interim speaker following the impeachment of the incumbent speaker, that is Charles Owino, who has moved to court to seek his reinstatement. Elsewhere, a section of Ngome Council of Elders from the Mbere community in Embu County wants the government to expedite their resettlement on the controversial Mua settlement scheme. More of these in the county news roundup.
We are banning the business of scrap metal in Embu County for fresh vetting ya hizo biashara. Sababu ni hii. There's a lot of vandalism of government and private properties.
Meanwhile, Kiharu Member of Parliament Dindi Nyoro is urging heads of government departments to channel resources towards the mitigation of the ongoing flood crisis.
There is usually monies for emergency, both in the county government and the national government. But to be honest, it is barely enough because no one foresees kutakuwa na jaga kama hili. And because of that, the Constitution of Kenya pia hiyo iliangalia na ikaona kunaweza kuwa in a situation we are in.
Elsewhere, junior secondary school teachers in Trans Nzoia County have vowed not to resume their jobs if the government does not meet their demands.
We presented our issues. We had 3 key points. The first one was abolishment of internship program for fully trained and registered teachers. The second issue was compensation of junior school teachers and primary teachers who served on internship program. So we were supposed to be compensated for all interns.
And the county government of Siaya has announced their commitment to improving emergency medical services for expectant mothers and newborn babies in a bid to improve the maternal mortality rate in the region.
When a mother is in distress, she requires just not any ambulance. The ambulance has to have the right personnel, it has to have the right equipment, and it has to turn around very fast. So we'll be using our technology to help coordinate those responses.
Elsewhere, the Kenya National Private Security Workers have called for an immediate review of the laws governing the sector.
Tunaomba na tumetoka kupatia katibu wetu mkuu mwongozo, na kama mkutano yetu ambayo ilikuwa ya NEC, tumemwambia ya kwamba hiyo kesho katibu Atwoli aweze kutusukumia ya kwamba iwe revisited.
Keeping with matters education, junior secondary school intern teachers in Murang'a County have threatened to down their tools at the beginning of second term if they are not absorbed on permanent basis and receive a pay commensurate to that of teachers employed on permanent and pensionable basis. Now, a recent ruling by Judge Byram Ongaya found the Teachers Service Commission in contravention of the law for employing teachers who have already graduated as interns under terms that do not meet legal standards.
Learning in junior secondary schools, JSS, which heavily relies on intern teachers, could be interrupted if their demands are not addressed by their employer. They're threatening to down their tools when schools open for second term. The teachers, commonly referred to as interns, made their demands on the back of a court ruling that found the Teachers Service Commission in contravention of the law for employing the teachers who have already graduated as interns. In Murang'a County, the demands of the teachers are well articulated on the placards. They argue that the court declared the extension of internship illegal, thus those who served for 1 year as interns need to be absorbed on permanent and pensionable basis. The teachers said they will only resume work after they get their confirmation letters.
We want TSC to confirm us into PNP terms, just like other teachers. Mogul's power. Number 2, we want TSC to obey the court order and compensate the 46,000 teachers for offering faithful services to the commission.
You employed us under contractual terms. Then, based on the legal framework in Kenya and the judicial elucidation, it is affirmed that an intern is entitled to the full rights and benefits of the under the Employment Act. So TSC has also violated the rights of interns because you have not been receiving these benefits.
They are further demanding that they be compensated for the period they have been underpaid and receive better medical cover.
We are tired as teachers of JSS, isn't it? Yes, we are depressed. Many of us, many moguls have killed themselves because of this 17K we are getting. Yes. And they are taxing us, they are deducting us housing levy, and then they are saying that we are not their employees. Who are we? Who are we?
Yeah. We don't have even a good medical cover. We'd like to urge the government to engage the national leadership of JSS and come up with, negotiate and come up with better terms and give us a response and let them know in advance. The only language we understand is compensate and confirm.
The teachers said they will embark on daily demonstrations from next week until their grievances are adequately addressed by the Teachers Service Commission.
Reporting there, let's look at sports, where Athletics Kenya has named the final 8-member marathon team that will represent the country in the Paris 2024 Olympics. Two-time Olympic champion, that is Eliud Kipchoge, will lead the men's team, while 2020 Olympic champion Paris Jepchirchir will anchor the women's team.
Kipchoge will anchor the men's team selected by AK, announced in Eldoret on Wednesday, alongside Tokyo Marathon champion Benson Kipruto and London Marathon champion Alexander Munyao. Tokyo Marathon silver medalist Timothy Kiplagat was named as a reserve in the men's team. Two-time Boston Marathon winner Helen Obiri will join Jepchirchir in the women's team alongside former world record holder Bridget Kosgei. 2022 New York Marathon winner Sharon Lokedi was named as a reserve in the women's team.
We are going to Paris as a team, not as individual. As you know, this is games. This is not the world major marathon. It's Olympic Games.
Our prayer and hopes is that to go and run well. We know we are going to run for the Kenyans, not only us. So for you guys, pray for us and support us in any ways. And for us, we are going to do our best.
Athletics Kenya President Jackson Tuwei said the reserves will go all the way, while at the same time hoping nothing will happen to the core team. The Paris Olympic Games are slated for 26th July to 11th August 2024.
We have had quite a number of athletes winning at least 2 times, including our Eliud Kipchoge, who has won twice. And therefore, we would like to give him a chance to see if he can be the only one in the world to do it 3 times in a row.
We are here because we want to make sure that this team that has been named here today, we work as National Olympic Committee and also through the government, we want to make sure that we work together in terms of any support that this team would want maybe to have in terms of preparing themselves to represent the country.
The second edition of the Eliud Owalo Foundation Basketball Tournament will be held from the 10th to the 12th of this month at the Nyayo National Stadium Indoor Gymnasium. The tournament, which was officially launched on Wednesday by ICT and the Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary, that is Eliud Owalo, will feature 12 teams drawn from both men and women's Kenya Basketball Federation leagues.
ICT and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo reiterated his commitment in growing and upscaling the standard of the game in the country to international level.
We want to see a situation where the national basketball team, the Morans, and also the ladies team, the Lioness, become as competitive as possible in the continental tournaments. And also to use it as a platform through which our youth can get gainful employment.
Owal said the foundation will be used to identify upcoming talents and also use the game as a source of income. CAS also revealed the top performers will receive scholarship for their university studies.
We want to expose them through tournaments like this forthcoming tournament so that they can showcase their talent. We are going to have scouts during this tournament, and our objective is to identify the best talent that we have within the Kenyan League and give them the opportunity to play for professional basketball leagues out there.
Kenya Port Authority, USIU, Equity and Thunder will headline the men's category, while Equity, Zetech University and USIU will feature in the women's category, among others.
Our motto is about, empowering the youth, and if you see what the slogan is for Eliud Owalo, it's actually about elevating our lives and empowering the future. And so for us, we're really, really happy, and we're willing to go all the way in terms of, nurturing the youth, in terms of, again, to do with talent. So thank you.
The winners of the tournament will pocket 300,000 shillings, while second and third runners-up will bag 200,000 shillings and 100,000 shillings, respectively.
Kingori Mwange reporting there. Kenyan champions KCB and compatriots Kenya Pipeline advanced to the semi-finals of the ongoing African Women's Volleyball Club Championship in Cairo, Egypt, after emerging victorious in their respective quarter-final matches. KCB humbled compatriots Prisons Kenya by 3 straight sets, while Kenya Pipeline silenced Cameroon's Lito team, Volley, by the same margin.
The bankers and their compatriots Prison Kenya started the game on high, utilizing every opportunity, but the first set ended 25-20 in favor of KCB. The bankers went ahead to win the second and the third set, 25-22 and 25-17 respectively. En route to the quarterfinals, the former African champions defeated ASEC Mimosa of Cote d'Ivoire by 3 straight sets. Prisons Kenya, who had beaten Nigeria Customs by 3 straight sets to advance to the quarterfinal, will now play in the classification matches. Meanwhile, Kenya Pipeline silenced Cameroon's Lito team Volley by 3 straight sets to qualify for the semis.
Well, that story brings us to the end of the bulletin this morning. Thank you so much for taking your time to start your day with us here on Good Morning Kenya. It's Entertainment Thursday, and the DJ together with Vivian have a lineup for you, so you do not want to miss that. And I think DJ, he's already in studio, can hear me, so kindly do play for me something as requested earlier, just to stand with our Kenyans who are suffering at the moment because of the ongoing floods. So thank you once again. My name is Marie Yambo, and I hope to see you next week. Do keep safe.